I think that if you had to pick one person to win it now, one individual team, sorry, to win it, it would be England. However, I think that is because on the other side of the draw, you can't be fully confident in who that finalist will be. However, if that finalist is a Belgium or Italy, which it probably will be, not sure about Spain, but if it's Belgium or Italy, you would, on a one-off game, even though it's at Wembley, possibly pick them over England, especially the Italians, given the Belgian injuries that they have.
Yeah.
But in an overall sense, you have to pick one team because of the draw. Football is kind of...
You're shooing England into the final, though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You see nothing there from any of those other teams. You're absolutely...
Well, Denmark.
Chickens.
Denmark, absolutely, you've seen enough from, but Denmark have to play the Czech Republic, who have been a tough nut to crack, obviously, and are playing really good football at times, and I'm not necessarily sure that's a gimme. That'll be a cracker this weekend, actually, Denmark, Czech Republic. I think absolutely the Danes will cause England plenty of trouble, and I wouldn't worry too much about the Ukraine game. And like, England have all of a sudden turned one of their great weaknesses into one of their biggest strengths. They used to never be able to succeed in playing tournament football when they would come up against what seemingly would be worse teams on paper, but yet those bad teams on paper would grind out a better result against England and embarrass England, whereas England don't necessarily at times seem to be the sum of their parts in a glittering attacking way, but are getting really good results.
I think, Eoin, though, it's incumbent upon us to ask everybody who's watching and listening this morning to ask the single most important question whenever a big match happens in a tournament like this. What does it mean for Ireland? What does it mean for us? Yeah. What does this English victory say about us as a race, as a nation? And how is your post-colonial inferiority complex this morning?
I'm surprised it's taken 2
raging?
minutes to get here. Listen, we've been through this.
Or is it calmed somewhat by the fact that actually, you know what, this is quite a likeable team. Gareth Southgate is about the best of our neighbours.
Yeah, he is the number one neighbour right now. He is the person you want to be living next door. And like this...
And what about the human thumb celebrating and cascading down that molten flesh, gently ebbing its way towards the edge and not being battered back by recalcitrant police? What did you make of the volcano of humanity that jiggled its way down the steps?
I mean, with the excitement of a child who lays eyes on a bouncy castle on their first Holy Communion, is how I looked at those, as you say, those thumbs as they looked at that sheet, the sheet that covers the seats.
It's like,
what?
That's not going to keep anybody safe. I mean, haven't these? I've seen fans overcome barbed wire, basically, in real life, and didn't look like it was very secure, but go on. Yeah,
there's a few ankle-breaking possibilities on top of those things, and it's been their traditional thing, this tournament. They've moved on from throwing plastic furniture at opposition fans in Marseille to, at this European Championships, dancing around Wembley, where the first thing they look for is the place where they're not supposed to stand, and subsequently stand on it and jump on it and dance on it, because that's what England do. They don't respect being told not to stand in row A, B, C and D. They will stand wherever they damn well please, because they've just beaten Germany 2-0.
You're suggesting they colonised areas that weren't actually theirs in the first place?
No, of course. I mean, Wembley is theirs and always has been. That's where the English state was founded, wasn't it?
So what did you actually think, honestly?
I thought that...
How is your post-colonial inferiority complex going this morning? Are you hopeful England win this tournament? Is it a disaster for you? We had Eamon Dunphy saying for his mental health he hopes Germany beat England. So it's going to be interesting to see the next time he's on the Euro show with Sheahan how he's feeling as we check in with him.
I think it's because Ireland have had such a poor record of getting to tournaments for so long that we kind of needed something to be invested in all of these tournaments. So from Euro 96 basically onwards, with the exception of 2002, 2012 and 2016, we've kind of needed something to do during the summer. And invariably, with the exception of 2008, one of those things that we could do successfully was cheer on everybody who was against England. And yes, of course, that's based in a post-imperial inferiority complex, but it's tradition. Tradition is important, and my tradition every summer is to sort of root against England, in spite of the fact that they may or may not have a very likeable manager and a very talented bunch of players who represent quite a lot of what is good about English society. It's tradition, and of course there was a little part of me when Thomas Muller not a little part of me, every part of me was on the floor, on my knees when Thomas Muller hit that shot wide yesterday, because I thought it was in the back of the net, first of all. But second of all, because it was an incredible chance and Jordan Pickford opened up the entire half of the goal for him.
They were giving Pickford credit for... I was like, hang on a second.
It was not good goalkeeping.
Yeah.
I saw that as well.
Oh, he made himself big.
No, he did not.
What?
That was the BBC analysis, yeah. I did pick up on that as well. Jordan Pickford gave that opportunity. No, he didn't give it on a platter to him. That's what Raheem Sterling did, and maybe the English defence failing to chase back. But it was an incredible chance, and I'm not going to lie, I badly wanted that to hit the back of the net.
It's actually an incredible moment of sporting drama where Sterling, who has recovered from the position of being the nation's scapegoat, where the Sun printed pictures of the toilet in the house that he'd bought for his mother, and had essentially waged a campaign, and alongside all of the other right-wing English newspapers, against Raheem Sterling for being rich and young and successful, where he had become the single most important player in the England team, the slayer of Germany, and then just in that moment it telescopes into this horrific error that he makes that sets the most German-looking of the Germans through one-on-one, the most reliable of the Germans in this team at this point. And this is just wide. But it's so slow. It's in such slow motion. It's like the slow England defenders trying to get back against him. It's not like a foot race with Kyle Walker, who just outstrips him. Kyle Walker still makes it back to be the last person close to him from 100 yards away, because he's the only fast player in that whole quadrant of the pitch. And you're like, slow, that's gonna happen, I have no idea. But it was good drama.
It was, yeah, and part of me really wanting to hit that ball to hit the back of the net.
Well, then what happens exactly?
Is that we wanted to see what would have happened rather than necessarily wanting to see England in pain. There is a case to be made that a lot of what has happened to England over the past 50 odd years has been down to bad luck. As much as we want to say that there's been just poor psychology and maybe poor preparation and overhype, and that's been a part as well, some of it has been down to bad luck. And yesterday evening, was a moment when they got a bit of good luck. They kind of deserved it in the grand scheme of things.
I see where you're going with that, right? Absolutely. I do see. They got a lot of luck yesterday. I mean, yes, Gareth Southgate picked the right team from his perspective for tournament football, but I still think that most of the reasons why England have failed since 1966 is because there was a lot of rotten stuff in their culture. In 1970, that team was brilliant and were incredibly unlucky. That did happen. But all the other teams, there's been something wrong with them. Maybe 86, there was nothing wrong with that team.
What about 98, for example? And that's one of the examples that comes to mind. Is there something rotten in the culture with the way they end up losing to Argentina, for example, or is that just?
Well, I think there's something slightly off with Glenn Hoddle's management style, where he was bringing in faith healers before the tournament. Do you know?
Well,
ask Teddy Sheringham about it. Ask Robbie Fowler about it. There was the cult of the manager and the giant ego of the man who was showing David Beckham how to play football, as opposed to picking the best team, getting everybody together, understanding what the opposition was doing. I actually would say, there was the imperial arrogance of the Hoddle era, where I was like, well, we've got the best footballers. And it's actually what they had was an 18-year-old Michael Owen, who they didn't even know was as good as he was when the tournament started. And still they managed to blow that portion of the golden generation when they did have a really good defence and a goalkeeper who would... It's still Seaman in 98, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, because he's there in 02 obviously as well, so he will be, but so that's definitely true.
I think Southgate has fixed a lot of that, to be honest, and I think that's why he's getting such credit for his team selection, where he dropped Phil Foden, who dyed his hair like Gaza to make sure that he wasn't getting dropped, right? How can you drop Phil Foden? He's got the same hair as Gaza. Good man, he actually just dropped him. He didn't pick Grealish, which I thought was a catastrophic error from the start, and then Grealish comes on and doesn't play well for the first 5 minutes, but then does play a key role in both the goals. So I don't know, it probably justifies him. But he played Sacco, and that's brave. And he played three at the back, and that's okay, it's a bit conservative. We've just seen France do the same thing. But I guess what I'm saying is that his presence isn't all about him. It's about trying to win the match as opposed to, I've got the biggest football brain here. It's actually, you know what, maybe we don't have the biggest football brain here. Maybe the Germans do. And so what we need to do is counteract that and build something from it. So that's impressive. But I think there had been something rotten in the football culture. And I think that it's slowly coming off. Now, is it going to come off all the way? I don't know. Yeah,
that's interesting. I still think in the midst of a rotten football culture, they still had decent enough players to go on and win things. And you still have moments of, like, whether it's Ronaldinho, whether it's Beckham's Red, whether it's Italia 90 in general, where there is still this scene of an individual or a moment in English football that is essentially down to bad luck. And it's just strange that Thomas Muller is the figure that comes out of last night, not Raheem Sterling or not another English player. And maybe that is as a result of a more positive culture. Maybe you make your own luck, but I still think it is just down to a little bit of good fortune, which they deserve, which over 50 years, one of those things was bound to break your way, one of those significant moments. But you're right in what you're saying about the bravery of Southgate last night. Imagine if we're waking up this morning and Muller does score and Germany win on penalties. Gareth Southgate would have got savaged. Of course, Sterling, you're right, would have suffered a similar fate. Southgate would have got savaged, changing our system, changing to 3 at the back after what France had done the previous night, which should have no bearing whatsoever in your analysis of a manager, but it would have been mentioned.
Yeah.
It would have been mentioned how Germany set up as well. Was Southgate maybe, was he aping that? Like, these are the things that would have been thrown at him. There is no way anybody would have been saying Gareth Southgate is still the man for this job if he'd got it wrong last night, which is unfair to base it all on one game, but that's international football, and that's what the English football fans deserve, is these big moments and these catastrophes to not happen, even though they can very nearly happen quite often.
Yeah. We'd love to hear from you this morning. How is your post-colonial inferiority complex? 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. You can leave a comment for us on the YouTube channel, or indeed, of course, you can always tweet us. Use the hashtag OTB AM, or we're at Off the Ball. The other thing, obviously, that this is about, if it's about our post-colonial inferiority complex, it's also about Mayo. Somewhere along the way, this has to be about Mayo. And Ian Ladyman in the Daily Mail, not actually writing about Mayo, but kind of writing about Mayo. It was done. A curse had been lifted. A spell broken. England 2, Germany 0. Does that mean finally this is the year? You're like, that curse has been lifted. If this curse has been lifted, what other curses are due to be lifted, Eoin?
I do wonder. I do think we need to wait. But I was literally just about to say, I do think we need to wait for a year with a 1 in it, so that's around. And I forgot it's not 2020 anymore. There you go. 60 years.
From that point on, there was time left only for the magnitude of this achievement to sink in. Across Europe, they may scoff. Oh, we will. They may wonder why Gareth Southgate's players did a little lap of honour around Wembley at full time. This was the last 16 game. There are 7 other teams left in this tournament. Isn't the time for such joyfulness supposed to be at the end of the actual final with medals in hands? Fair enough. But then why would we expect anybody else to understand? How would they know what this has felt like all these years? How could they possibly get it? Because everybody wins the tournament every year. That's how it works. Martin Samuel, it is done. The mission accomplished. England have beaten Germany in a knockout match at a tournament for the first time since
1966.
It's done. The mission accomplished. England have won, actually won, not just progressed via penalties, a knockout match at a European Championship tournament for the first time in their history. I mean, I can see why you get carried away, right? You should get carried away.
Imagine if this was us. Imagine if the Republic of Ireland had beaten, not even Germany, imagine if they had beaten Sweden, like Ukraine beat Sweden last night. Would have been absolute pandemonium if the Republic of Ireland had won a knockout game. By all means, we are not questioning the celebration and why they're celebrating. I mean, we might sneer a little bit at how they're celebrating and the vociferousness of it all, but we get why it's happening.
Karl Anka in The Athletic. Good cane is like a premium Swiss Army knife, able to switch between 9 and 10 and sometimes number 8 rolls at will. Bad leggy cane is like getting a cheap plastic spork. It's trying to do everything when you'd rather use a specialist tool before everything breaks and dinner time is spoiled. And then it happened. Kane decided he wanted to be a knife, just a simple regulation knife. He stayed in the middle, cut through the German defence and got his headed goal. Is this the awakening?
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Karl Anka is an excellent writer. Is this the birth of Kane? And do you have to put Grealish in the team? Or is it like Grealish is a super sub?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. Like, he is a super sub, and you will get your best version of Jack Grealish over a very short burst of time. But is that actually the best thing for the team, or do you want him from early in the game? I think you want him from early in the game. I think you've got to start him. I think, like, the one person who maybe has his position up for grabs after yesterday evening is Bukayo Saka. But can Grealish really play off the right? Maybe he can. Maybe he can play anywhere in that front three, and it's no big deal. Sterling is obviously a lock. You're probably not going to change Phillips and Rice at this stage, considering they're your midfield too, and you haven't conceded any goals, and that's part of that defensive structure now. You're going to keep your back three and your wing backs as well. It's just maybe a final midfield spot, and maybe Bukayo Saka's spot, which is up for grabs. But I'm not necessarily sure that's actually going to happen. Yeah, no, I can't see him coming into the team because the position isn't going to be there for him unless they actually move to a back four once again, where, as I say, that extra midfield spot does present itself.
Well, and also it's Ukraine. Does that enter into your thinking that you don't want to give a sucker an even break and you just beat them early?
Yeah, absolutely. But giving a sucker an even break in the context of this England team is not allowing them to score, not giving them up anything stupid, not allowing them in for any easy opportunities. And that was what would have been particularly galling for England yesterday had Muller put that away, was that it seems that a lot of the system is based on not giving the opposition anything. And I know we sat here after the Croatia game and you were saying that actually wasn't a bad performance from England, and I said it was quite average. But I think maybe in hindsight, I do need to revise that a little bit, that Croatia have proven that they're better than they were that first night.
Yeah.
And what England did to nullify them probably deserves credit, because Croatia did look appalling that first day, and maybe the opposition does deserve credit for that. Giving a sucker an even break is maybe not crushing them in Spanish style, but English style means maybe just shutting them out for a long period.